You know that moment when your heart just stops? When the entire room goes dead silent and you can literally hear your own pulse pounding in your ears? Well, that happened to me last Sunday at what was supposed to be a peaceful family dinner. My mother-in-law had just finished tearing apart the meal I spent 6 hours preparing, calling it inedible and a waste of perfectly good ingredients right in front of our extended family. I was standing there, holding back tears, feeling completely humiliated, when my 8-year-old son, Ethan, suddenly stood up from his chair. What he said next didn't just silence the room, it changed our entire family dynamic forever. And if you think you know where this story is going, trust me, you have no idea what's coming. Welcome back to Plot Twist Life, where real family stories take unexpected turns that'll leave you speechless. I'm Sarah, and today I'm sharing the most embarrassing yet empowering moment of my marriage. If you love stories about family drama with shocking endings, hit that subscribe button now because you're going to want to hear how this all unfolded. Let me set the scene for you. My mother-in-law, Margaret, let's just call her Maggie, has never liked me. From the moment I started dating her precious son David 7 years ago, she made it crystal clear that I wasn't good enough for her family. You know the type, right? The kind of woman who smiles sweetly to your face, while finding passive-aggressive ways to remind you that you'll never measure up to her impossibly high standards. David, bless his heart, has always been caught in the middle. He loves his mom, but he also knows how she can be. For years, I've bitten my tongue, smiled through her comments about my appearance, my career choices, and especially my cooking. See, Maggie considers herself somewhat of a gourmet chef. She went to culinary school back in the 1970s and has never let anyone forget it. Every family gathering becomes an opportunity for her to showcase her skills, while subtly or not so subtly criticizing everyone else's attempts at cooking. But this particular Sunday was different. It was Ethan's 8th birthday, and I had been planning this dinner for weeks. I wanted to make it special, not just for him, but for our whole family. I decided to prepare his favorite meal, my grandmother's famous pot roast recipe, the one that had been passed down through 4 generations of women in my family. This wasn't just any recipe, it was a labor of love that required starting the preparation at 5 in the morning. I slow cooked the roast for 8 hours, hand mashed the potatoes with real butter and cream, made green bean casserole from scratch, and even baked Ethan's favorite chocolate chip cookies for dessert. The house smelled absolutely incredible, and I felt genuinely proud of what I had accomplished. David kept walking through the kitchen, stealing tastes and telling me how amazing everything smelled. When the family started arriving around 4 o'clock, I was nervous, but excited. My parents came, David's father, Maggie, and David's sister Jessica, with her 2 kids. Ethan was bouncing off the walls with excitement, showing everyone his new toys and talking non-stop about how his mom made his most favorite dinner ever. Everything was going perfectly until we sat down to eat. I had set the table with our best china, lit candles, and even picked fresh flowers from our garden for the centerpiece. Ethan was grinning from ear to ear as I brought out each dish, explaining to everyone how this was his great-great-grandmother's special recipe. The first few minutes were wonderful. My parents were raving about the food, David's father was asking for seconds, and even Jessica complimented the presentation. But then I noticed Maggie hadn't touched her plate. She was just sitting there, moving the food around with her fork, wearing this expression that I can only describe as disgusted. "Is everything okay, Maggie?" I asked, genuinely concerned that maybe something was wrong with her portion. She looked up at me with this cold smile and said, "Oh, I'm sure you tried your best, dear." The way she emphasized tried made my stomach drop, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe she just wasn't very hungry. Then, about halfway through dinner, while everyone was chatting and laughing, Maggie suddenly put down her fork with a loud clank that made everyone look in her direction. "I'm sorry," she announced to the entire table, "but I just can't pretend anymore. This food is absolutely inedible." The entire room went silent. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. My face immediately turned bright red, and I felt like I was going to be sick. "Mom," David started to say, but she held up her hand to silence him. "No, David, someone needs to be honest here. The roast is dry as cardboard, the potatoes are lumpy and oversalted, and don't even get me started on these green beans. They're mushy and flavorless." She was speaking in this matter-of-fact tone, as if she was giving a professional restaurant review, instead of destroying her daughter-in-law at her own dinner table. I was frozen. Completely frozen. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't even breathe properly. 7 years of pent-up frustration, hurt, and humiliation came crashing down on me all at once. I felt tears starting to well up in my eyes, and I was desperately trying not to cry in front of everyone. My mom looked absolutely mortified, and my dad's face was turning red with anger. David looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. But before anyone could say anything, little Ethan, my sweet, innocent 8-year-old son, slowly stood up from his chair. He looked directly at his grandmother, with these serious eyes that seemed way too mature for his age, and in the clearest, most confident voice you've ever heard from a child, he said, "Grandma Maggie, my mom spent the whole day making this dinner special for my birthday because she loves me. She got up before the sun came up to start cooking, and she wanted everything to be perfect for our family. The food tastes like love to me, and I think you forgot what love tastes like." The silence that followed was deafening. Maggie's mouth actually fell open, and for the first time in 7 years, I saw her completely speechless. But Ethan wasn't done. He continued, still standing. His little hands pressed against the table. "My mom is the best cook in the world because she cooks with her heart. She makes me pancakes shaped like dinosaurs when I'm sad, and she always saves me the biggest cookie. If you don't like food made with love, maybe you should eat somewhere else." I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that every adult at that table was stunned into complete silence. My 8-year-old son had just said what every single person in that room had been thinking for years, but was too polite or too scared to say out loud. But here's where the story takes an even more unexpected turn. Instead of getting angry or defensive, Maggie's eyes started to fill with tears. Real tears. She looked at Ethan, then at me, then back at Ethan, and her whole expression changed. "You know what, sweetheart?" she said softly, her voice completely different from the harsh tone she'd been using just moments before. "You're absolutely right. I did forget what love tastes like." She picked up her fork, took a proper bite of the pot roast, chewed it slowly, and then looked directly at me with what I can only describe as the first genuine smile she'd ever given me. "Sarah," she said, and I could hear the emotion in her voice, "this is delicious. I owe you an apology. A big one." What happened next was even more shocking. This woman, who had spent 7 years making me feel inadequate, started explaining to the entire table how her own mother-in-law had treated her the exact same way when she was a young wife and mother. She talked about how those experiences had made her bitter and critical, and how she had unknowingly passed that behavior down without realizing the damage it was causing. She admitted that she had been jealous of the close relationship I had with Ethan, something she felt she had never achieved with her own children because she was always so focused on pointing out what was wrong instead of appreciating what was right. The conversation that followed was unlike anything our family had ever experienced. We talked openly about hurt feelings, unmet expectations, and the importance of kindness within families. Maggie shared stories about her own struggles as a young mother that I had never heard before, and I found myself actually feeling sympathetic toward her for the first time ever. But the most amazing part was watching Ethan throughout this entire exchange. He sat there listening to every word with the wisdom of someone far beyond his 8 years, occasionally nodding or adding his own innocent observations that somehow managed to be exactly what everyone needed to hear. By the end of the evening, Maggie had not only finished everything on her plate, but had asked for the pot roast recipe. She hugged me goodbye, a real hug, not one of those stiff, obligatory ones, and whispered in my ear, "Thank you for raising such an incredible little boy. He taught me something very important tonight." The weeks that followed brought changes I never could have imagined. Maggie started calling me regularly, not to criticize, but to actually check in and see how we were doing. She began asking for my recipes and even invited me to cook with her in her kitchen. something that would have been unthinkable just a month earlier. But perhaps the most touching moment came 3 weeks later, when Maggie showed up at our door, unannounced on a Saturday morning. She had a grocery bag in her hands and a nervous smile on her face. "I was wondering," she said hesitantly, "if you might teach me how to make those dinosaur pancakes that Ethan was talking about. I thought maybe I could make them for him next time he spends the night." That morning we stood side by side in my kitchen, and I watched this proud, accomplished woman struggle to flip a simple pancake shaped like a brontosaurus. She was laughing at her mistakes instead of getting frustrated. And I realized that my son's words had somehow unlocked a part of her that had been buried under years of perfectionism and fear. Looking back, I understand now that Maggie's criticism was never really about my cooking. It was about her own insecurities, her fear of being replaced, and her inability to express love in a healthy way. Sometimes it takes the innocent honesty of a child to break through walls that adults have spent years building. Ethan taught all of us that night that food isn't just about perfect seasoning or flawless presentation. It's about the intention behind it, the love that goes into every step of preparation, and the joy of sharing it with people who matter to you. When you cook with love, people can literally taste the difference. Our family dynamics completely shifted after that evening. David felt like he could finally breathe, no longer constantly worried about keeping the peace between his wife and his mother. My relationship with Maggie evolved into something I never thought possible. We actually became friends. Not just polite relatives, but genuine friends who could laugh together, share stories, and support each other. And Ethan, well, he became something of a family legend. His grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins all heard the story of how he stood up for his mom and changed everything with just a few honest words. But he doesn't seem to understand what all the fuss is about. To him, he was just telling the truth about his mom's cooking and defending someone he loves. That Sunday dinner taught me that sometimes the most powerful moments come from the most unexpected sources. My 8-year-old son showed our entire family what it means to stand up for what's right, to speak truth with love, and to see past surface-level problems to address what's really going on underneath. If you've ever dealt with difficult family relationships or felt like you weren't good enough for someone important in your life, remember that love and truth have a way of breaking through even the strongest barriers. Sometimes all it takes is one person brave enough to speak honestly about what really matters. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment when someone unexpected stood up for you? Or maybe you've been in a situation where honest words changed everything. Share your story with our Plot Twist Life community. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life family dramas with shocking endings, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Trust me, the stories I share here will keep you on the edge of your seat, and you never know when the next plot twist might inspire you in your own life. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.